Hello, Katie here from Salvaged by K. Scott. This video has been highly requested for a very long time here on the channel, so I am excited to finally be bringing you along with me as I refinish a dining table and chairs. I have been hunting my local thrift stores for months now, trying to find the perfect dining set to refinish for our own space. And I just wasn't able to find what I was looking for. But then a few weeks ago, Facebook Marketplace finally delivered. I got a notification of a curb alert for a beautiful solid wood pedestal dining table and 4 chairs in great condition out on the side of the road for free. This set is definitely contemporary. I can tell from the condition and just from the way that it's built that it is a pretty recent big box furniture store set. All 4 crossback chairs are solid and sturdy with just some really mild surface scratches. Oftentimes tables can be deceiving and appear to be solid wood when they're actually a thin veneer over a cheaper substrate like MDF, and those can be really hard to refinish. But when I look at the bottom side of this tabletop, I can see that these are solid boards of wood that go from top to bottom and they're all joined together. That means that I can strip and sand this tabletop as much as I need to without having to worry about sanding through or damaging a thin veneer. I want to lighten up the top of this table a little, and then I'm going to be painting the apron and the base to match the rest of the furniture in my space. So to help me get through these first few layers of factory finish, I decided to start off with a chemical stripper. I poured out a thick layer of stripper onto the surface and used a disposable chip brush to spread it out. I could see it go to work right away, but I waited the recommended 15 minutes before starting to scrape it away. And I'm using a plastic scraper today to avoid potentially scratching or gouging the wood because a chemical stripper like this can make it soft and more susceptible to damage. It was pretty clear after my first few passes with the scraper that I needed another coat of stripper. So I went ahead and added on some more and then cut open a large trash bag to cover it all up just to help that gel from drying out while it was working on breaking down that finish. After another 15 minutes had passed, I peeled back that plastic and started scraping again. And I'm collecting all of this goop in an old metal coffee can so that I can keep it all together and make sure that I properly dispose of it at my local hazardous materials disposal site. You always want to check with your local municipality as to how to get rid of chemicals like this. Unfortunately, even with this second pass of a ton of stripper, I was having some problems getting it to come up, especially around the edges. So I decided to scrape up as much of the finish as I could, and then I'll just get the rest of it with my sander. But before I can sand, I need to clean up any residue that is left on the tabletop. And I used some mineral spirits to do that. This is going to stop the chemical reaction and also just pick up any gooey areas that are left behind after me scraping. So I poured out some of my mineral spirits onto the tabletop and used this little kitchen scrubby pad to clean everything up. I need to wait for the tabletop to dry before I sand as well. So while I'm waiting for that to dry out, I'm going to address this really large split on the bottom of the pedestal base. I first thought that I could bring it back together and close it up with some wood glue and applying some screws through the bottom of the base. So I loaded up that joint and screwed a couple of Kreg jig screws in from an angle, hoping that it would pull together and close up that gap. Unfortunately, this attempt to close the gap even just a little bit was a total fail. It's still a huge hole on the other side, so I'm gonna go ahead and just fill it in with some really strong wood filler. And now that my tabletop is dry, it's quite a mess, so it is time to bust out my random Orbital Sander and start smoothing things out. I'm going to work my way up through some different grits of sandpaper. I'm starting with an 80, which is pretty coarse, and that is going to help me grind through the rest of that thick factory finish that is obviously super tough since it resisted all of that stripper. And then once I've got all of the previous stain and finish off of the tabletop, I will move up to a 120 grit sandpaper to start smoothing out the tabletop. And then my final pass will be with a 220 grit to make sure that everything is nice and smooth and ready for stain. Once I was totally done sanding the tabletop, I used a microfiber cloth to wipe away all of the dust and get it ready for stain. I'm not 100% sure what species of wood this tabletop is, but I love the way that it looks now that it is sanded bare. I just want to tone it down a touch. It's a little bit red for my liking. So I applied a coat of Minwax's pre-stain wood conditioner just to make sure that my next step of a whitewash stain is going to apply evenly over the entire top. Next up, I'm going to apply a coat of Minwax's wood stain in weathered oak. This is a really mild, light effect for a wood stain, and I wasn't quite sure what was going to come of this table. I wanted to just kind of leave it and go with the flow. Like I said, I love the way it looks as it is, but I just wanted to mute those red tones just the tiniest bit. So I'm just playing around here with stain and we'll see what comes of it. I wiped the stain over the whole tabletop with a lint-free rag, and I like to just get it on in sections and then go back side to side in the direction of the wood grain to even it out. I ended up building up 3 coats of that weathered oak stain to get to a point where I was happy with the way that the tabletop was looking. It's got this really cool striped design with those boards that are joined together, and I'm loving the way that it's looking now after this 3rd coat of stain, so I'm gonna stop there. Now that I have an idea of what my tabletop is going to look like, I can start working on these chairs. I am going to be painting these, so I need to make sure that they are super clean. I sprayed them all down with a TSP alternative to break up any grease or polish that's been on them, and then I scrubbed them down really well. I rinsed everything off a few times with some clean, clear water to make sure that all of the cleaner was gone, and left them out to dry in the sun. Next, I used a 180 grit sandpaper on my little SafePrep sander to sand that filler spot on the base, and then I switched it out to some 220 grit paper on a foam pad to scuff sand all of the areas that I wanted to paint. The next morning I was ready for paint, so I masked off my tabletop with some plastic to protect it. I flipped all of the chairs and the pedestal upside down so that I could spray the bottoms and make sure that I didn't miss any hard to reach spots. I am using a new to me paint, and I think it's pretty new on the market as well. This is Command by Benjamin Moore, and I'm using the color Onyx. It is a waterborne acrylic urethane, so it should give me the extra strong finish of an oil-based product with the ease of use of something that's water-based. I gave my paint a really good stir, and then I poured some into my gravity-fed HVLP pneumatic spray gun. The label says not to thin this paint, so I'm going to be spraying it straight up without any additional water. Some of the other things that drew me to this particular paint are its really quick dry time. It only needs 15 minutes to be dry to the touch and has a 1 to 2 hour recoat time, unlike Benmore's Advance, which needs 16 hours. It also has a return to service time of 24 hours, which means it doesn't need days or weeks of cure time for you to be able to ruggedly use the surface again, which is perfect for furniture, and especially a dining set like this that I want to get out of my workspace and back in the house and in use quickly. It also has great adhesion, so an additional primer isn't required for most surfaces. But if I wasn't painting black over a dark wood, I would definitely still use my favorite bin shellac-based primer to prevent any stain bleed through from happening. I ended up spraying 2 coats on the bottom of the chairs and the base, as well as the apron of the table, and then I flipped everything back the right way up. I did notice that I had a little hair stuck in the finish, so I grabbed some 400 grit sandpaper to knock that off and smooth it out, and then I sprayed 2 more coats over everything. When I was done with my painting, I let everything rest out in the garage, and on day 3, I was ready to seal up my table. This is another new to me product, but it has been around for a very long time. Minwax's wipe-on polyurethane is incredibly easy to use and provides a really durable satin top coat. I poured some of the poly out onto a lint-free cloth and rubbed it into the wood, again making sure that my finishing strokes went all the way across the tabletop in the same direction as my wood grain. I applied a total of 3 coats of this, sanding lightly with a 600 grit sandpaper in between and waiting the recommended 2 hours between coats. Once my last coat of polyurethane was dry, I was ready to bring everything into the dining room and reassemble this table. I love the way that this set came together. I think it fits perfectly into our space and it matches fantastically with the Ethan Allen bookcases that I painted earlier this year. Thank you so much for hanging out with me again today as I refinished this set. I am absolutely in love with the way that it turned out. Leave me a comment down below. Let me know what you think of this makeover and maybe some ideas for what you'd like to see me refinish in the future. Make sure that you are subscribed before you go, and I will catch you guys next time.